Evelyn Bennett is a 35-year-old art teacher living a quiet life in the hills of Asheville, North Carolina, married to the love of her life, Mason. But then Evelyn's entire world comes crashing down as she stands alone in the sterile hallway of a morgue, staring at a note that reads, "No open caskets, serious injury. Mason died instantly in a fiery car accident." 7 months had passed, but the grief hadn't loosened its grip. She woke up every day in a house filled with silence, photos, and memories that felt like ghosts. The funeral was a blur, planned mostly by her parents, who gently took over when she couldn't think straight. Her weekly lifeline became a local grief support group, where she found herself whispering into a circle of strangers. Some mornings, I forget he's gone, for a second. Though Mason had left her financially secure, with a cottage, a downtown loft, and nearly $50 million in life insurance and assets, Evelyn chose to keep working part-time at the Community Art Center. The loneliness was too sharp at home. What she didn't know then was that her pain would soon turn into betrayal, one that would not only reopen old wounds, but also unravel the truth about the people she trusted most. Evelyn's relationship with her parents had always been complicated. Growing up, she often felt like a shadow compared to her younger sister, Scarlett. Scarlett was the golden child, the one with the ballet trophies, the straight-A report cards, the big personality that commanded every room. Meanwhile, Evelyn faded quietly into the background, praised only when she didn't make trouble. But something shifted after Mason's death. For the first time, her parents invited her over every Sunday, asked about her job at the art center, and even thanked her for the monthly $3,000 she sent to help with their bills. Her mother's pot roast became a familiar comfort, her father's soft chuckles a surprising balm. Evelyn started to believe they were finally seeing her. Then Scarlett returned, 8 months pregnant and glowing. She swept into their Sunday dinner like a celebrity making an entrance. "Sweetheart, sit here," their mother cooed, scooting Evelyn aside and fluffing a pillow for Scarlett's swollen feet. Evelyn's presence vanished. Her parents doted on Scarlett like she was porcelain royalty, forgetting Evelyn existed. "How are you doing with everything?" Evelyn asked during dinner, forcing a smile. "Is the father helping out at all?" Scarlett rolled her eyes and muttered, "That's none of your business." The tension in the room tightened like a wire. "Jessica, don't pry," their mother snapped, using that same scolding tone Evelyn hadn't heard since she was a teenager. "Your sister deserves her privacy." Privacy. Evelyn remembered how her parents interrogated her during her fertility struggles, tracking every appointment, offering unsolicited advice, and constantly reminding her of their grandparent dreams. But now they gave Scarlett a free pass. It wasn't just the favoritism that stung. It was the smug, knowing look Scarlett wore. The same look she used when bragging about a new job, a new boyfriend, or one of her get-rich-quick schemes that always crashed and burned. Evelyn had seen it too many times to count. "I've got everything under control," Scarlett said that night, rubbing her baby bump like a prize. "Trust me. This baby's going to have the best life." Their father beamed like she had just won an award. "That's my girl, always a fighter." Evelyn swallowed a lump in her throat. Still the second choice, she thought, as she poked at her food. It was as if Mason's death had simply cleared the stage for Scarlett's grand performance. Days later, Scarlett called and invited her to the baby shower. Evelyn hesitated. This was their first real conversation since Mason's funeral, and it didn't feel sincere, but something inside her hoped maybe this was a step toward reconciliation. "I'd love for you to be there," Scarlett said sweetly. "I have something special planned." Evelyn didn't know it yet, but that something special would shatter her world. That day, the baby shower felt like a nightmare Evelyn couldn't escape. As she stepped into the Bennett family home, everything around her felt like a different world. A pastel paradise filled with pink and blue balloons, ribbons twisting around the walls, and a towering diaper cake dominating the dining table. like some grand centerpiece. Laughter and chatter filled the air, while Scarlett shone in her designer maternity dress, waving and greeting everyone like a queen. Evelyn, despite the pain, brought 2 gifts, a high-tech baby monitor and a handmade cream-colored blanket she had spent countless nights crocheting. Despite everything that had happened, this was still her niece or nephew, family. The party continued with games, and Evelyn forced herself to join in, measuring Scarlett's belly with yarn, guessing the due date, and laughing politely. But when she won one of the games, Scarlett's smile faltered slightly, her gaze lingering on Evelyn, like she was waiting for something. After the gifts were opened, Scarlett carefully held Evelyn's blanket, tracing the stitching with her fingers. Then, unexpectedly, she tapped her glass with a fork, silencing the room. Everyone turned their attention to her. "Thank you all for coming," Scarlett began, placing one hand over her belly. "This baby is such a blessing, but there's something important I need to share." Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. She could feel the shift in the room, the air turning thick with tension. Her hands grew cold, and a knot formed in her chest. "I think it's time everyone knew," Scarlett continued, her gaze locking onto Evelyn's. "The father of my child is Mason Bennett." The words hit like a sharp knife. Gasps echoed around the room. Evelyn stood frozen, unable to comprehend what she had just heard. Mason, her Mason. Whispers spread like wildfire. Aunt Marlene dropped her wine glass. Someone choked on their cake. But what crushed Evelyn the most was the look on her parents' faces. Blank, not shocked, just resigned. They already knew. Scarlett, unfazed by the chaos she had caused, continued, "Since this baby is Mason's only child, I'm entitled to half of what he left behind. His estate, the downtown loft, the insurance. My child deserves what's rightfully theirs." Evelyn couldn't breathe. Her knees buckled, and she gripped the back of a chair to steady herself. "That's not true," she gasped. "You're lying. He would never." Scarlett pulled out her phone and showed the room a photo of her and Mason, embracing in what looked like a hotel room. Another photo of them holding hands at a romantic restaurant Evelyn didn't recognize. "He loved me," Scarlett said, her voice dripping with confidence. "He was going to leave you." The room spun, and Evelyn stumbled toward the door, the guests parting silently as she walked away. Her whole world, the grief, the marriage, the family, had been built on a lie, and it had just crumbled in front of an audience. Evelyn drove home in a daze, Mason's betrayal replaying in her mind. The photos, the messages, and her parents standing with Scarlett. She entered her quiet home, only to be bombarded with dozens of messages from Scarlett, each more crushing than the last. Screenshots of texts where Mason declared his love for Scarlett and plans to be with her. Evelyn collapsed on the floor, sobbing. She had blamed herself for not getting pregnant, while Mason and Scarlett secretly planned their future. That night, she wandered through the house, touching the remnants of their life together, wondering if any of it had been real. At 6:03 a.m., the phone rang. It was her parents. Her father coldly spoke about what was fair for the baby, and Evelyn, voice trembling, demanded to know when they knew. 7 months ago, 7 months of lies. "You still took my money," she whispered, ending the call and blocking them. She canceled the monthly payments she had been sending. Weeks passed, and the betrayal seeped into every part of her life. At the art center, whispers and pitying looks followed her. One afternoon, she broke down during a presentation, her boss offering her time off. She shut herself in, silenced her phone, and stared at the baby blanket she had made, now likely wrapped around Scarlett's child. Then a Facebook notification shattered the silence. Scarlett, beaming with her newborn son, Adam Jr. The following week, legal papers arrived. Scarlett was suing for half of Mason's estate for a child Evelyn feared might truly be Mason's. But the truth was even more shocking. The lawsuit was real. The envelope Evelyn opened that day was thick with demands, threats, and legal jargon that made her stomach churn. Scarlett, through her attorney, claimed, on behalf of her son, Adam Jr., that she was entitled to half of everything Mason left behind: the house, the loft, the savings. The letter called it a voluntary resolution, but Evelyn saw it for what it was: a hostile takeover dressed in a diaper. She barely slept for days. 4 long days and nights of pacing the house, rereading the court summons, questioning her sanity. Was she fighting ghosts? Or was Scarlett truly capable of orchestrating something this cruel? She searched for the best legal representation she could afford, and that led her to Paul Hayon, a sharp, seasoned inheritance lawyer known for digging up inconvenient truths. "I have to be honest," Paul said, flipping through the documents Scarlett's attorney had filed. "Your sister has what the court would consider compelling evidence: photos, texts, witnesses, even your own parents. And she has a child that could be Mason's. That makes things complicated." Evelyn's heart sank. The room felt smaller. She braced herself for the worst. Then her phone rang again. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Is this Evelyn Bennett?" asked a soft but firm voice. "Yes," she replied cautiously. "I'm Joyce Adler. I'm Mason's mother." Evelyn froze. "That's not possible," she whispered. "Mason told me his parents died when he was a child." "I know, he told that lie to everyone. But I am very much alive. And I think I can help you, if you're willing to meet." They arranged to meet at a quiet cafe the next morning. Evelyn arrived early, trembling, mind spinning. She had no idea what to expect. Then Joyce walked in. She was elegant, gray streaks in her hair, a graceful stride, eyes the exact same shade as Mason's. Evelyn's heart stuttered. "I was at the funeral," Joyce said, settling across from her. "Back row, black veil. I couldn't face you, but I've been following what's happening, and I have something that might change everything." Joyce slid a weathered envelope across the table. Inside were medical records: Hartford General Hospital, Mason Adler, age 26. Evelyn's eyes scanned the document, her breath hitching. Diagnosis: complete azoospermia, permanent infertility, no natural conception possible. Evelyn dropped the paper. Her chest rose in silent shock. Mason had known. He had known all along he couldn't have children, and he never told her. He let her suffer through hormone shots, tears, guilt, let her think she was the problem. Joyce's voice trembled. "We stopped speaking soon after that. He changed. But I didn't want you to keep suffering, not like I did." Evelyn looked at her through tears. This woman, once a stranger, had just handed her the key to saving her life, her dignity, her future. And for the first time in months, Evelyn felt something other than rage or grief. She felt hope. The day of the court hearing, the air outside the courthouse felt like it was holding its breath. Evelyn stepped out of the car beside her lawyer, Paul Hayon, her heart pounding beneath her black blazer. In the courtroom, Scarlett sat in the front row, cradling baby Adam Jr. with her trademark rehearsed sadness. Evelyn's parents flanked her, their eyes avoiding Evelyn's gaze. Scarlett wore a somber dress, no jewelry, her hair perfectly curled to emphasize the image of a grieving, brave mother. To most of the room, she appeared sincere, but Evelyn knew better now. When Scarlett took the stand, she spoke in a voice laced with tears. "All I want is fairness," she said. "My son deserves the life Mason would have given him. I didn't plan for things to happen this way, but we loved each other. He wanted this baby." Her lawyer emphasized the texts, the photos, the emotional bond. Evelyn sat still, her hands gripping the edges of her seat. Then it was Paul's turn. "Your Honor," he said calmly, "we'd like to submit new evidence." He approached the judge and handed over Mason's medical records. These hospital documents, dated before Mason's marriage, confirm a diagnosis of complete infertility. Mason Bennett was medically incapable of fathering a child. The courtroom hushed, Scarlett's attorney jumped to object. These documents are suspicious. Their origin must be questioned. Paul nodded politely. We anticipated that. Your Honor, allow me to introduce Joyce Adler, Mason's biological mother. Gasps rippled through the room. Joyce stood, her presence commanding despite her quiet demeanor. I'm prepared to submit my DNA for comparison to the child's, she said. If he's my grandson, I want to know. And if not, I think Evelyn deserves that truth. Scarlett's composure cracked. That's not possible, she blurted. Mason was adopted. He didn't know his real mother. The judge, unmoved, simply said, a court-ordered DNA test will determine the truth. The session adjourned for testing. 2 weeks later, Evelyn returned to a courtroom, now charged with anticipation. Scarlett looked pale, her hands visibly trembling, as the judge opened the envelope. These results, the judge read, confirm there is no genetic relationship between the child and Mrs. Joyce Adler. Therefore, Mason Bennett is not the biological father. A gasp, then silence. Scarlett began to cry, her facade collapsing. I didn't know for sure, she whispered. The judge's voice sharpened. You knowingly made a claim against this estate using false information. Miss Ramsey, your case is dismissed in full. You're fortunate the defendant is not pursuing criminal charges. Evelyn sat in quiet relief. She hadn't just won the case, she had reclaimed her voice. Outside, her parents approached. Her mother's mascara streaked from tears. Evelyn, we didn't know. Please, we're struggling without your help. Evelyn didn't flinch. She lifted her phone, blocked their numbers right in front of them, and walked away. Joyce waited near her car. Are you all right? Evelyn laughed through tears. I think I am, or I'm getting there. And for the first time in almost a year, Evelyn felt something unfamiliar but welcome: freedom. 4 months had passed since the courtroom verdict, but Evelyn Bennett still remembered the sound of the judge's gavel like a thunderclap in her chest, marking the end of a nightmare and the beginning of a new chapter. Her old life, with Sunday dinners and a marriage now revealed as a lie, was over. She no longer spoke to distant relatives, neighbors, or even Scarlett, whose apology Evelyn tore up without reading. She had cut them all out, and in their place, a new relationship bloomed with Joyce Adler. Their quiet dinners and conversations about Mason, focusing on the boy he once was, not the lies, became a source of healing. One evening, as Evelyn packed Mason's belongings, she paused at an old photo and placed it in a donation box. Joyce softly said, "Not everything was a lie. He did love you, maybe not perfectly, but the good is still there." Evelyn gave Joyce the key to Mason's apartment. Joyce was moved, whispering, "I never thought I'd have a daughter." Evelyn didn't cry for what she lost. She smiled for what she found. She was healing. Evelyn returned to work at the Community Arts Center, joined a hiking club, and planned a solo vacation. She realized that, although she lost what she thought she needed, she gained what she didn't know she was missing. Evelyn Bennett had been betrayed, but now she was rebuilding, with stronger hands, a clearer heart, and a future all her own. Betrayal from those closest to us can feel like the cruelest kind of pain, because it shatters the foundation we thought we could trust. Evelyn's story reminds us that truth doesn't just hurt, it also heals. When the lies fell apart, so did her illusions. But in their place, she found clarity, strength, and the power to rebuild. Often, we tie our worth to people who never truly saw us. We compromise, we give, we hope, until one day, life rips away the veil. And while it's devastating, it's also liberating. Evelyn didn't just survive the loss of her marriage and family, she reclaimed her voice. The real gift wasn't the justice she won in court, or even the exposure of lies. It was the quiet courage she found to walk away and not look back. Because healing doesn't always come from others. Sometimes, it begins the moment we choose ourselves. If you've ever been betrayed, manipulated, or discarded by the very people you trusted most, know this: you're not alone, and your pain does not define you. Take Evelyn's path as an example. Start by setting boundaries, no matter how difficult. Choose silence over explanation when your peace is threatened. And when the truth finally finds you, don't run from it. Let it light the path forward. Whether it's a toxic relationship, a secret that shakes your world, or a moment where everything crumbles, remember, what breaks you today may be the very thing that shapes your strength tomorrow. If you enjoy deep, emotional, and meaningful stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new update. Your support is the motivation that drives us to keep bringing you powerful stories. Once again, thank you for being here, and see you in the next story.